Inheritance tax in the Valencia region. When we talk about the Valencia region, we're talking about Denia, Calpe, Alicante, Moraira, Javia, Valencia itself, Alicante itself. Okay. My name is Michael Davies. I'm a Spanish lawyer specialized in estate planning and probate. I've been doing this for over 25 years. And okay, well, today we're going to talk about inheritance tax in the Valencia region. I'm going to quickly explain how the inheritance tax works in the Valencia region, how it's calculated, and then at the end of the video, I'll give you 3 or 4 simple examples of a couple buying a property in the Valencia region at different price levels and explain how much the spouse will pay in those examples, how much inheritance tax they will pay if their spouse passes away. Okay, so the first thing is people ask me sometimes, well, why did you do one video on inheritance tax in the Valencia region, another one on the Balearics? Very simple. In Spain, we have 17 different regions, and each region in Spain has been allowed to create their own exempt amounts, special exemptions, and therefore the result has been that in Spain, the levels of inheritance tax are completely different in the 17 regions. So much so that we offer a Zoom consultation for clients that are thinking of buying a property in Spain and they want to go through the different levels of inheritance tax. As for some people, especially high net families, it can sometimes be a point to consider when choosing where to retire to. Okay, so this video is for those that have inherited in Valencia region, or maybe inherited in the Valencia region, or are people that have got assets in the Valencia region. They want to know how much inheritance tax their beneficiaries will pay. So this isn't a video for people who got assets in other parts of Spain. You'd have to find the corresponding video, otherwise you'll just be wasting your time with this video, because inheritance tax is different. Okay, so basically, the people that will declare their inheritance tax under the Valencia rules are going to be those beneficiaries that are resident in the Valencia region, in which case they'll declare their worldwide assets to the Valencia regional government, and also those non-residents of Spain who are inheriting their assets in the Valencia region, or if they're inheriting assets that are in various regions of Spain, if the majority of the assets are in the Valencia region. If you're a resident in another part of Spain and you inherit assets in the Valencia region, you will pay the inheritance tax depending on where you as a beneficiary are resident. So if you're resident in Spain, that will determine to what regional government you pay the inheritance tax. If you're non-resident in Spain, you simply pay wherever the majority of the assets inherited are. When people look at this on the internet, they get very confused, because in the old days, non-resident beneficiaries could not claim the exemptions available in each region of Spain. They had to go to the national inheritance tax level system, which was always the worst deal possible for them. That changed though some years ago, and then that changed in 2014, 2015, I can't remember. And so after that, non-residents that were resident of the EU, they could claim the exemptions of the region where the assets were situated. And last year, they also started to allow non-residents of Spain that were resident in non-EU countries to also claim those exemptions. That was especially important, obviously, after Brexit. Otherwise, English citizens would have had a really bad deal because they wouldn't have been able to claim regional exemptions. Okay, so in Andalusia, How do we work out the inheritance tax? Well, the first thing is that we always have to look at what each beneficiary receives, because in Spain it's the beneficiary that pays the inheritance tax and not the estate. Okay, so in other words, if mum passes away and she has 2 children and they each receive half the estate, we have to look at what each one of them receives to calculate their tax. So the first thing we need to look at is what amounts are, what allowances you have. Okay, so in the Valencia region, the allowances for children are and for spouse, they're allowed 100,000 euro. Okay, so if you have a property in the Valencia region and you leave it to your 2 children and the property is worth 300,000, they each inherit 150. Well, the first 100,000 euro is non-taxable for each one of those 2 beneficiaries, and we'd only calculate inheritance tax on the last 50,000 euro. Now, if you are an underage child, that amount can be slightly more, and you can have an allowance up to even 156,000 euro, depending on what age you are. Okay, but for most people that are inheriting, as I say, it's going to be, if they're in group 1 or 2, that's spouse and descendants, 100,000 euro. In addition to this allowance, there are some other allowances in the Valencia region that we'd have to look at. For example, for a family business, a family farm. There's also an allowance for your main home, but for that, remember, you have to be a resident. So, for example, if 2 spouses have a jointly owned property, in relation to the house itself, if it's a house that they've been living in together, then you've got an allowance for the value of the house as well. But this exemption has some strings attached, because it means that the surviving spouse has to live there for another 5 years after they've inherited. So it may not always be in your interest. It depends on what your inheritance tax level is and what you want to do. This would need to be discussed. So once we've applied the allowances, which I say in general is 100,000 euro for each beneficiary in group 1 and 2. Today I'm only going to talk about beneficiaries in group 1 and 2. Who are these? Well, we're talking about the spouse, we're talking about any descendant, whether it's children or grandchildren, and we're talking about the parent. We're not going to talk about relatives that are further afield. Their inheritance tax level is much higher. So, and even worse if you're leaving assets, for example, to friends. I'm only going to talk about spouse and descendants and parent. Okay, so once we've applied the allowance to what each beneficiary receives, we apply a sliding scale. And the sliding scale in the Valencia region is the same as for the rest of the Spain. It's a sliding scale. It starts at 7.65% and goes all the way up to 34%. Okay. In general, then we have to apply a multiplier depending on your pre-existing wealth, but it will not add much to that calculation used on that sliding scale. Now, the good part is that in the Valencia region, once we've calculated the inheritance tax after taking these 2 steps, and first we apply the allowance, then to the difference we've applied the sliding scale, starts at 7.65% and goes up to 34%. Then we do make the small adjustment based on pre-existing wealth, which may add a little bit more to it, maybe the small multiplier, but not large amounts. Now comes the good part. In the Valencia region, your inheritance tax bill, once you've calculated in that way, is reduced by 50%. Okay, 50%. If you're a descendant, a child, etc., and you are under 21, then you get a whopping 75% deduction on that final tax bill. So the conclusion is that inheritance tax in the Valencia region is not too bad. On our traffic light system that we like to use on our appointments, we're talking about there's the green regions, the amber regions, and the red regions, the one that you don't want to go to for inheritance tax, where Valencia region is an amber region. Andalusia is one of the green, Madrid is green, and even the Balearics can be green for certain types of beneficiaries, mainly for spouse and descendants if their estate is less than 700,000. Okay. So let me just give you a couple of examples, as I promised before, concrete examples. So let's imagine that we have John and Mary. They're non-residents and they have a villa up in Denia worth 400,000 euro. If John passes away, how much will Mary pay? So on 200,000 euro, we said they're non-residents. I'm not going to go into the detail of there are certain, you have chattels that you have to add, there are certain expenses that you can deduct, but we won't bother about that because it won't make any major difference to any of the numbers. So basically, they've got the villa, they might have a small bank account, maybe a small car, but we won't worry about that. So the villa up in Denia, 400,000 euro, John passes away, Mary has to inherit half the property, 200,000 euro in value. We knock off the first 100,000 and it leaves us with 100,000 euro. So to the 100,000 euro, we apply the sliding scale. I should have had it in front of me there. Let me see. Let's get the sliding scale out. Well, I thought I had it here. Oops. No, this is not going as well as I thought. Let's see, here it is, okay. So we apply the sliding scale, and on 100,000 euro, Mary's tax bill would be roughly, I'm just going to round it out, about 10,000 euro. But then remember, we've got the exemption that we have in the Valencia region for group 1 and 2 beneficiaries, and she's allowed a 50% deduction. So her final tax bill would be 5,000 euro. In other words, John and Mary with their property 400,000, John passes away, Mary will pay inheritance tax roughly about 5,000 euro. That's if they were non-residents. What would be the difference if they were residents? Well, if they were residents, Mary would not only have to declare what she receives from John in Spain, but what she receives from John worldwide, okay, on assets in other countries. And then we make the same calculation, we have to make the same calculation, and at the end of the day, obviously what we would have is an allowance on the value of the main home where they live, which we can as its main home because they're residents there. So the tax bill, we'd have to calculate separately, a bit more complex, we'd have to explain it step by step. Okay, so that's 400,000. Let's imagine now that John and Mary have now got a house up in Moraira, a value of 700,000. So on 700,000, John passes away, Mary inherits the property, so she inherits a value of 350,000. On 350,000 euro, we knock off the 100,000, leaves 250,000. And on 250,000 euro, we apply the sliding scale again. I've probably just lost it again. Here we go. 250,000 euro as a non-resident. So we apply the sliding scale. The tax bill about 42,000 euro, approximately round figures. And to that, we apply the 50% reduction. So it leaves us with a tax bill of 21,000. So now John and Mary, non-residents with a villa worth 700,000. John passes away. Mary will pay in round numbers around 21,000 euro in inheritance tax. So not too bad. Not perfect. Not perfect either. If you'd like to have a consultation with us, we offer a 1-hour Zoom consultation to discuss whether you need a Spanish will, if you have one, whether it's the correct one for you, just to go through all your paperwork. And if you need a new will, we would prepare a Spanish will for you, and we can have it prepared whatever region of Spain you're in this case in the Valencia region. If you want to book one of these consultations, just send us an email to info@daviessolicitors.com, and we'll gladly send you a budget and availability for a Zoom consultation with me. If you like the video, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to join our newsletter, send us an email, and we will add you to our newsletter to keep you informed of things that may affect you in Spain, especially related to inheritance. With that, thank you for watching. Thanks. Bye.